Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take complex source material and turn it into actionable, unforgettable knowledge.
Today we're doing a really fascinating deep dive, specifically requested by you, actually. It's all about language acquisition.
Right, and not just learning words, but the whole journey of developing a non-native accent, specifically targeting American English in this case.
Exactly. We have this incredibly detailed timeline and psychological map from one particular learner. It traces her path right from early childhood exposure in rural Moldova all the way to achieving a really high level of proficiency, including mastering, the tricky technical bits of an American-style accent.
So our mission here is to really unpack the techniques, the challenges, the whole non-linear process behind this. We're going beyond just vocab and grammar.
Yeah, we need to look at the physical side, the psychological hurdles, what it actually takes to fundamentally change how you sound.
And the sources suggest we start not with the ABCs, but with that immediate mental block.
That's right. The speaker describes it vividly. Trying to change how you speak feels profoundly unnatural at first, almost wrong.
Yeah.
It's a real fight against your own body's habits, your muscle memory.
Okay, let's dig into that initial resistance, because I think pretty much anyone who's tried to work on an accent feels this. Why is it so, well, uncomfortable? Why does moving your mouth differently feel so artificial?
Because it is artificial, initially. It's pure physical effort. The sources have this great analogy. It's like starting weightlifting.
Oh.
When you first hit the gym, your muscles strain. They feel weird because you're forcing them into movements they've never done before, or not often anyway. Accent work. It's identical. You're asking for totally new coordination patterns from your jaw, your tongue, even muscles in your face.
And lots of learners, maybe without even realizing it, they resist that physical effort. They stick with what the source calls the native language mouth.
Exactly. It's the default setting, the comfortable place. Think about the natural resting position of your tongue, the tension in your jaw when you speak your first language, your L1. That's your native language mouth.
Right.
So if your native tongue, like Romanian, in this specific case study, uses maybe narrower vowel sounds, less jaw tension, well, those muscles are trained to operate within a pretty limited range.
Which brings us neatly to that example, the word cat. This really shows the mechanics, doesn't it?
It does, perfectly. If you try to make that American A sound in cat, using, say, those ingrained Romanian muscle habits, you might end up saying something that sounds more like cut, or maybe cut.
Why? What's the physical difference?
It's the jaw drop. The American A in cat needs a significant drop, opening your mouth really wide, vertically. If your muscles haven't been stretched and trained for that big movement, you physically can't produce the target sound accurately. It doesn't matter how well you know the dictionary pronunciation. You need, essentially, physical therapy for your mouth.
Wow. Okay, but then there's this other layer, the psychological one, which sounds even trickier. The fear of losing your identity. The speaker talks about overcoming this irrational fear that trying to sound American meant trying to become American, like abandoning her roots. That feels like a really potent anxiety.
Oh, it is. And it's important to acknowledge that fear. It's valid. When you change something as fundamental as your voice, you feel exposed, vulnerable. Your voice is so tied to your sense of self, your community.
Sure.
But the speaker really insists this fear, while real, is based on a misconception.
I wonder about that, though. Is it really a misconception? I mean, if you get really good, don't people start treating you differently, perceiving you as maybe culturally assimilated in a way you didn't intend?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
The external perception can change, absolutely. But the source focuses on the internal experience. The guarantee offered is that the process is additive, not subtractive. You don't erase your identity, you just gain complexity, you add layers.
So you integrate useful parts of the new culture's communication style without ditching your heritage.
Exactly. You become, potentially, a more open-minded person, someone who can navigate different cultural and linguistic contexts more easily.
Yeah.
You're expanding your toolkit, not replacing who you are at your core.
Okay, that makes sense. It sets the stage really well. So let's rewind the clock. Back to the very beginning of this journey, 1997. The speaker's 7 years old, living in rural Moldova. This is where it all starts, quite accidentally.
Yeah, it begins with what you might call accidental immersion, but really high-impact immersion, the main source of English exposure. An American soap opera, Sunset Beach.
Sunset Beach, right. Described as beautiful people running around on the beach. Quite a contrast to rural Moldova, I imagine.
Absolutely. Imagine being 7 in a landlocked village, and suddenly you're seeing this glimpse of Californian life. It was intense, immediate cultural contact.
And crucially, she wasn't just watching passively. The source says she turned it into this active imitation exercise, mimicking the characters.
And the level of detail in that imitation for a 7-year-old is remarkable. It wasn't just repeating lines. It was intense physical observation. She was watching how they spoke.
Like what specifically?
Well, things like how the American actors rolled their R's, which is a different muscle movement compared to the Romanian R. She noticed their mouths seemed to open wider.
And you mentioned these other technical details, things often missed in school, like deeper vocal placement and nasal sounds. What could a 7-year-old possibly be picking up on there?
It boils down to resonance, really. Many languages, including Romanian, tend to project sound quite far forward in the mouth. American English often uses what feels like a deeper placement. The sound seems to vibrate more in the throat or chest, giving it a slightly lower, maybe rounder quality.
Okay.
And the nasal sounds, that's not just N and M, it's also how air flowing through the nasal passage colors certain vowels in American English. She noticed this overall sound quality difference, this different use of the vocal tract, even before she could label it technically. She was learning the acoustics before the alphabet.
Just pure ear training. Listening to the English dialogue while reading Romanian subtitles or translations, learning the sound before the symbol.
A very powerful way to start.
Right.
Which sets up phase 2, the collision with formal schooling. 1998, she's 8. English becomes mandatory, taught by a Ukrainian teacher.
And right away, there's this disconnect, isn't there? School offers the structured textbook basics, numbers, fruits, simple grammar, but she's already trying to connect those rules to the flowing, natural speech she hears on TV.
Yeah, she had these 2 parallel tracks running, and they were kind of in conflict, structured grammar versus the living melody of speech. And this early self-taught skill immediately caused issues in the classroom. Socially, I mean.
They made fun of her at first.
They did. Look at the American. They laughed because she was opening her mouth wider, trying to roll her R's like the actors. Being good at English initially made her an outsider, marked her as different.
But that flipped pretty quickly.
It did. Because suddenly, she was the go-to person for help with homework and tests.
Ah, the expert in the room.
Right. And interestingly, this is where she discovered she actually enjoyed teaching. She wouldn't just give answers. She'd make her friends explain the grammar rule behind it. Why is it present perfect here? Tell me why. A little teacher in the making.
But more importantly for her own learning, she had this big realization about authentic speech versus classroom speech. The actors didn't talk like the textbook. They didn't pause after every single word.
Yes. This was her discovering connected speech. And also melody, intonation, rhythm, all the musical parts of language that traditional schooling, focused on grammar and writing and single words, often completely misses.
Like, I'm going to the store versus I'm going to go to the store.
Exactly. If you only learn the first way, you'll never sound natural no matter how perfect your grammar is.
Yeah.
School was about written accuracy. She realized real life needed spoken fluency, that flow.
And she came up with some great ways to practice this on her own. Tongue twisters for rhythm and this mirror talk idea.
The mirror talk technique is brilliant, actually. It's basically rehearsing in your head or whispering out loud when you're alone, imagining arguments, conversations, expressing opinions, all in English.
Why is that so effective?
Because it forces you beyond just repeating phrases. You have to actually think and formulate complex thoughts in English, express emotion, but without the pressure of a real conversation partner judging you. It bridges that gap between robotic practice and real spontaneous use.
Okay, so fast forward now. Phase 3. The rude awakening. She finishes high school, starts university studying accounting, which she already knows isn't right for her, and decides to do the work and travel program in the U.S. Her agent tells her, "Your English is excellent."
Confidence was high, but then reality hit hard. She gets a job as a line cook, seafood restaurant, tiny fishing village in Alaska.
Alaska.
And the shock was immediate. It wasn't that she couldn't speak basic English, she could. The problem was her ability to listen and understand in that environment. Fast-paced, noisy, high pressure. Her comprehension just collapsed.
That's such a critical point. Academic English versus real-world chaos. Why did her listening fail so badly?
Well, think about it. It wasn't polite, slow, clear conversation. It was commands barked across a noisy kitchen, thick local accents maybe, tons of specialized kitchen slang she'd never encountered. Context was everything.
And the example of freezing when asked for a lid.
Right. A simple word, but in that high-stress moment, combined with maybe not knowing that specific kitchen vocabulary instantly, she just froze. It highlighted the gap between knowing grammar and having functional, context-specific language ready under pressure.
The emotional impact sounds huge.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
The sources say she cried for the first 2 weeks, felt like a complete failure. Despite all those years of practice, it was this brutal lesson. Textbook knowledge means almost nothing until you can deploy it instantly under fire. That experience completely changed her goals.
Which leads into phase 4, really targeted professional level practice. She goes back home, makes a big change.
Huge change. Ditches accounting, switches majors entirely. Goes for a master's in translation and conference interpretation. Now, this isn't just about learning language anymore. It's about language as a high-stakes professional tool.
Focusing on really practical skills.
Extremely practical, like simultaneous translation.
We hear that term a lot. What does doing simultaneous translation actually demand that just being conversationally fluent doesn't?
It's intense cognitive multitasking. You're listening to one language, processing the meaning, formulating the equivalent in another language, and speaking it all almost at the same time, maybe with just a 2 or 3 second lag.
Wow.
It requires incredible short-term memory, rapid reformulation skills, nerves of steel. You have to be totally unfazed by the pressure. Committing to mastering that shows how serious she was about deep functional proficiency.
Okay, so after that intense training, she takes another job in the U.S., this time bartending. Seems like an ideal practice ground.
Couldn't be much better, really. Bartending is constant, non-stop conversation. You have to interact, understand orders, make small talk, deal with different accents, mimic, respond quickly. It's like a fire hose of real-world practice with immediate feedback.
But even then, even with good conversational skills from bartending, there were still hurdles.
The challenges shifted, became more subtle. It wasn't about basic understanding anymore. It was about catching the nuances, the quick jokes, the cultural references, the sarcastic comments between native speakers. She mentions often having to kind of pretend to get it, laugh along awkwardly just to keep the social flow going.
Right, that gap between fluency and true cultural literacy.
Exactly. Being able to talk versus truly understanding the subtext, the humor, the shared assumptions.
The journey keeps going. 2018, she moves to Canada. And despite having lived and worked in the States, the Canadians immediately picked up on her accent. Where are you from? First question.
Another reality check. She thought she was pretty close to seamless by then, but nope. The Canadian ear caught something different straight away. What's interesting is her reflection on it later.
Who was that?
She actually went back and watched some old Instagram videos of herself from around that time and realized, oh wow, I can hear the accent myself now. She hadn't been quite as native sounding as she perceived herself to be back then. Self-awareness takes time too.
And then comes the final layer, the ultimate professional polishing, getting promoted to restaurant management.
That forced a whole different level of language skill. It wasn't just casual chat or taking orders anymore. This was about handling guest complaints, dealing with sensitive staff issues, representing the company. It required careful, diplomatic, polished business English, choosing words precisely to de-escalate, persuade, or instruct.
And the source emphasizes that even then, the learning, the observation, it never really stops.
Never. That's a key insight for any advanced learner. You have to keep actively observing how native speakers communicate in different contexts, the specific phrases they use in professional settings, the tone shifts, the vocabulary choices. She admits she still practices tongue twisters sometimes, still looks up pronunciations for words like hierarchy. It's ongoing refinement.
Okay, so let's pull this all together. This huge journey, decades long. From a kid imitating a soap opera to self-teaching, then the shock of real-world use, targeted professional training, and eventually teaching others. What's the takeaway for someone listening today? Does it have to take that long?
Oh, that's the crucial point the speaker makes. Her timeline was so incredibly long, partly because she had such limited resources during those key early years. Think about it, no phone, no internet access at all between ages 12 and 15. Her high-intensity learning was confined to maybe a few hours of TV a day or those relatively short trips abroad.
Which is completely different from today. That's the shortcut.
That's the massive shortcut. Learners today have constant access. Apps, AI tutors you can talk to, YouTube, streaming services, online communities, native speakers available 24/7 via the internet. You can get that continuous feedback and immersion that she literally had to cross the globe for.
So the potential acceleration is huge.
The source is pretty optimistic, suggesting that with today's resources, someone could potentially cut that timeline down dramatically. Maybe achieve a similar high level of proficiency in, say, just a couple of years of focused effort rather than decades. It's about leveraging the tools.
Ah, that's really encouraging.
It is. But before we finish, we absolutely have to come back to the role of the accent itself in all this.
Right. It's important for clarity, obviously. Avoiding those misunderstandings like in the Alaska kitchen.
Yes, clarity is key. Making sure people can understand you easily, reducing that listening effort for them, that's vital for effective communication. But, and this is a consistent theme, the sources strongly argue that achieving accent perfection, sounding exactly like a native speaker, is not the ultimate goal. Or at least, it shouldn't be for most people.
So what should the priority be?
Communicative competence,
Mhm.
connection, being able to express yourself clearly, understand others, build relationships, have meaningful conversations. An accent that allows for that is a successful accent. If it's clear and understandable, it's fine. Maybe it's noticeable, maybe it marks you as non-native, but that's okay.
It's the difference between being understood and trying to be indistinguishable.
Exactly. The goal should be bridging communication gaps, not necessarily erasing your linguistic background entirely.
So here's the final thought for you to consider. When you're pursuing fluency and knowing the sheer physical and mental effort involved in deeply changing your accent, like we discussed today, how much of your energy should realistically go towards achieving that elusive accent perfection versus focusing maybe more on cultural understanding, vocabulary, and simply connecting effectively with people, even if your own unique voice, your own accent, remains part of who you are? That's something to think about.